Madison.
That's me.
Oh, that's you. Oh, duh. Okay.
Welcome everyone to this, turn on my speaker. Welcome everyone to this Raymore Planning and Zoning meeting, Tuesday, June 6, 2023. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I will take roll, and I don't have the,
Cheat sheet.
yeah, I don't have the cheat sheet. Hold on a second.
Easier would be maybe just, you can call it off of wherever that starts, members present.
Okay, I will do that. Sorry, I'm not quite prepared. Okay, I'm going to take roll. Let's see. All right. Commissioner Bowie is not here. Commissioner Manser?
Present.
Commissioner Peterman?
Present.
Commissioner Faulkner?
Present.
Chairman Wiggins is not here. Vice Chair Pfizer is here. Commissioner Smith?
Present.
Commissioner Urquia?
Present.
And Mayor Turnbow is absent. And just for the record, Commissioner Bowie is in attendance. So we will start, we will start the meeting. We have no personal appearances today. We'll start with the consent agenda, approval of minutes from the May 16th, 2023 meeting. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve minutes from our May 16th, 2023 meeting with noted corrections. The sheet should have been in front of all of you.
I'll second.
Okay. Okay, that was motion by Commissioner Faulkner, seconded by Commissioner Urquia. Sorry, my mouth isn't working tonight. Okay, let's, everyone in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, looks unanimous. Let's see how many we have. Okay, we will move on
Got
to.
7.
Hmm?
Did you have 7?
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep.
Thank you.
So
Okay.
we'll count again. Okay, we have no unfinished business, so we will move on to new business, and we have case number 23015, Saddlebrook preliminary plat, and a preliminary plat requires a public hearing, so I will open that right now, and I will ask the applicant to please come forward and present their case. And state your name and address for the record, please. Oh,
Okay. Rick Fry, Brookside Investments, 803 PCA Road, Warrensburg, Missouri. This is basically a little over a year and a half ago, we ran this plat through the ground that we've owned for years, and it was approved by the council. And somehow there was some confusion from when Jim Cataract left and Dave took over. We didn't know that we were supposed to have the plat recorded, so we're back here to just get it all back together so we can get the plat recorded. There are no changes from what the council approved last time. It's exactly the same.
okay. Thank you. All right, staff, do you have?
Anything else?
Or I'm sorry. All right, is that everything? Or
I can't hear you. What?
Any
I'm
questions
sorry.
from the council commission?
yeah, any questions from the council for the commission? Sorry. You're gonna keep me on my toes. Okay.
Mr. Chair.
None. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are these questions for the applicant or
Yes,
staff as
for the
well?
applicant right
Okay.
now.
I have no questions for the applicant, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll go to the staff report on this.
Perfect. Thank you and good evening. Tonight you have in front of you a preliminary plat approval
for Saddlebrook subdivision. This area is generally located north of Hubach Hill Road and east of Stonegate subdivision. The existing zoning of the property is R1P, single-family residential plan district. Total tract size is 83.667 acres with a total number of lots of 172 lots and 13 tracts. The growth management plan designates this property as appropriate for low-density residential, while the major street plan classifies Hubach Hill Road as a minor arterial and Brook Parkway is classified as a minor collector. With this being a public hearing, it was advertised in the North Cass Herald, May 17th of 2023. We did also hold a good neighbor meeting on the 24th of May. No one did attend that, and actually we didn't, with not a substantial change in the preliminary plat, we did not require the applicant to be there either, but no one actually came to the meeting. So we kind of stuck around for about 20 minutes and no one was present. So with this being a public hearing, items entered the record, mailed notices to adjoining property owners, notice of publication, Unified Development Code, the application, growth management plan, the staff report, the preliminary plat, and then anything else that's added for this hearing. This is a pretty recent preliminary plat, and so I'm not going to go through all the history, but just kind of highlighting the last couple of things that have happened. There was a good neighbor meeting that was held on May 19th in 2021 for the original preliminary plat. I believe like 15 citizens showed up to that meeting, as well as some of the citizens that are kind of on the outlying unincorporated area of Cass County. The city council voted to approve the Saddlebrook subdivision preliminary plat, as well as they amended the bulk and dimensional standards at that same meeting on July 26th of 2021. However, that preliminary plat did expire, and so that's kind of why this is in front of you again tonight. The one and only change that we really that you will see is that Tract Y, which was part of the Brookside subdivision, if you remember back, probably a year and a half or almost 2 years ago, there was some title work that was done with that the city would get kind of like a park, a trailhead area that had like a bicycle repair station, a water fountain, and Tract Y was part of that. So that was 3.667 acres, and did want to clarify that in the staff report because I think it says 3.550 acres. But really that is the biggest change, and so with that being said, staff does recommend to the Planning Commission to accept staff proposed findings of fact in forward case number 23015 Saddlebrook subdivision preliminary plat to the City Council with a recommendation of approval subject to the following condition. If you notice in your preliminary plat, all the street names just have a road with a letter, so we are requiring them to have a street name so that we can address them appropriately when a final plat does come before you all. So this will conclude staff report.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff? Commissioner Mansur?
Yeah, I had a quick question about the order of how things took place. I'm seeing on page 6, line item number 6, I'm showing that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended, was it this same plan for denial back in 2020, September of 2020?
This would have been a different plan. Well, and actually it wasn't even initially a plan, it was a rezoning because they were going to go from R1 to R2,
Okay.
which was denied.
Okay. I believe that's all I had then.
Any other questions? Anyone care to make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Thank you. So this is a public hearing, so if any members of the public would like to speak on this matter, they can come forward right now. Okay. Oh, so, okay, I'm gonna hit this now. So, public hearing is closed. Now, you have a question, Commissioner Faulkner? Okay.
I remember this case from June 15th, 2021, and I remember voting against the preliminary plat then, don't really see any significant changes from the preliminary plat then to now, and so I have a strong suspicion that I will probably vote against it again. And being consistent, my objections to this preliminary plat were, number one, I just can't see the south half, the 4 cul-de-sacs with 4,500 square foot minimum lots. I just can't see why this sort of development is appropriate for Raymore. Those lots are very small. There's a lot of density. I'm concerned about street parking. If you subtract a double driveway, you've got room in front of a house for 1 car per house. I can't picture how that's going to work out. The cul-de-sacs, per code 445.030, section I9A, I believe, and our Unified Development Code specifies that cul-de-sac streets shall be 600 feet maximum. All 4 of these cul-de-sacs exceed that. And in the interest of fairness, I remember Mr. Crass pointing out at the last hearing on this preliminary plat that that section of code does allow city engineering and/or planning and zoning commission to take exception to the 600-foot maximum. However, given that these homes are already packed in so close, to me, it's not at all appropriate to allow the cul-de-sacs to exceed 600 feet. The dead ends of the cul-de-sac, all but one, are west of the pipeline. Dead ends, it's a high-pressure pipeline. Growing up in central Missouri, I remember that a high-pressure natural gas line into town broke in the winter, was out for 3 days. It was out in the country, didn't really pose a big threat to surrounding area, but pretty much anybody that heated with natural gas, which was most of the town, left. And so I do know that natural gas high-pressure pipelines occasionally break. With the 3 cul-de-sacs west of the high-pressure pipeline, there is no other way in and out. That's the downside of cul-de-sacs. And finally, just a very minor concern, Lot 14, which I believe is at the dead end of the first cul-de-sac north of Lucy Webb, has the gas pipeline easement running through it to the effect that I don't see how it's possible to build a house on Lot 14 given the easement. But at any rate, those are my concerns, and I would take exception to proposed findings of fact number 2. Preliminary plat is in compliance with all applicable regulations, and state that, in my opinion, it is not in conformance with the section of code on cul-de-sac lengths. So that's all. I will note, by the way, that at that preliminary plat hearing in 2021, I believe there were 3 commissioners voting against it and 6 commissioners voting in favor, and City Council did approve it. So I would expect that this will ultimately be approved, but as I say, I'm going to be consistent with my vote in 2021. I just simply do not see the south half of Saddlebrook as appropriate for Raymore.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Urquilla?
Can you remind me, was this the rezoning, was that initially because they were wanting to do like duplex type housing?
That's
On
correct.
this.
So 1 and 2 family would be the R2.
And so then because they went from 2 to 1, that's why they shrunk the lot sizes?
That's
so that they
correct.
could try to make it where, okay. I just
Feasible, yep.
trying to tweak my memory as he was chatting. That's all. Thank you.
Quick question for Commissioner Faulkner. Do you have the length of the cul-de-sacs that you are?
I didn't write them down this time.
I remember
Using-
you citing them last time.
Yeah, they're the same. I did lay out the large prints. I think the scale is 1 inch per 100 feet. And just to be sure, I scaled them, and I think the requirement is from the center line of the through street to the center line of the cul-de-sac. And they all scaled in excess of 600 feet. I think one of them was probably close, one or two were closer to 800 feet, but I don't remember the exact numbers.
Is the length restriction normally because there's houses all the way around the cul-de-sac?
What was your question again? I'm sorry.
I'm asking if the length restriction for the cul-de-sac is designed because normally there's homes all the way around it? Or is the 600-foot limitation for other reasons other than the development around it?
My understanding of that section of code, and I'm not sure if I can find it real quickly, so I'll work from memory if that's okay, but my understanding was that, whereas, most of us have been told and been made aware that from a security standpoint, cul-de-sacs are potentially better because thieves don't want a single way in and out, but from a public safety point of view, and of course we have at least one expert here on that, cul-de-sacs have the downside of having only one way in and out, so the more houses, the more homes you have on a cul-de-sac, the higher the risk.
No, and I get that, and that's why I'm asking if it's because of the number of homes that normally go around it, because in this case, the homes don't go all the way around each cul-de-sac because it's butting up against an area, and so for that reason,
Right.
I don't know that the length limitation is as important. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just trying to understand why the length would make a difference when we're not having homes all the way around the cul-de-sac.
Well, it would be simply because with 4,500 square foot minimum lots, 4,500 foot minimum widths, even though there are not homes at the west end of the cul-de-sacs because of the floodplain, there are still a very high number of homes in there, and I'm going to find this section of code real quickly because I want to. Okay, so if anybody had a code book, and hope mine is current, page 445-13, cul-de-sac streets may not be longer than 600 feet measured from center line of the cul-de-sac to center line of the connecting street. In subdivisions with lots 1/2 acre or larger, cul-de-sac streets may be up to 800 feet in length. And then it goes on with the statement about exceptions. So my understanding of the allowance to go longer on a cul-de-sac with larger lots is that it's simply a concern for the number of houses that have only a single access via the cul-de-sac.
Madam Chair, if I could interject to give a little maybe background on the zoning and the preference for the cul-de-sac layout, kind of jogging the memory of our discussions back in 21 on this plan. With respect to the rezoning and the separation of the larger lots on the north side and the smaller lots on the south side, that was kind of a compromise between what was proposed initially as part of their initial plan. Some of the, I guess, angst and pushback from the neighbors within the Brookside subdivision that was already established. There was a desire to try and maintain some consistency with the types of homes in that subdivision. They're primarily split levels, very nice houses in that, but on more traditional lot sizes. So the revision to that and the final plan that was initially approved looked at dividing the development in half and keeping a more consistent development on the north side adjacent to the existing subdivision, and then putting some of the smaller lots that were approved at their rezoning closer to Lucy Webb and some of the traffic on Lucy Webb. The commission will also remember across the street from Hubach Hill is the Sendera subdivision, which has the same type of lots that are being proposed within this plat, within that abut that same development. So that was the rationale between the two different types of lot sizes you see within there. Relative to the cul-de-sac, I do remember that discussion and kind of jogging my memory with the discussions with Mr. Krass at the time. Part of, as Mr. Eppert mentioned, the zoning of this property is R1P, which means to obtain that zoning, there had to be some level of amenities or unique things about the project. And so the inclusion of that was the preservation of that green space that abuts the Stonegate subdivision to the west. In order to maintain the, basically the number of lots in the subdivision to make it a feasible development, the cul-de-sacs were proposed as a means of preserving that green space and not having to extend the road and remove some of the trees that provided a nice screening between the Stonegate subdivision and this proposed development. And so just looking through, like I said, jogging my memory, that was kind of the justification for the waiving of that requirement. And I'll let Mr. Zur add on to that as well.
Yeah, I would simply note that under the terms of the P designation, city staff has the ability to deviate from to a degree from portions of code requirements, and so in order to provide for the amenities within the community, Mr. Krass had made that determination to deviate from the length of the cul-de-sac, the deviation being the increased length of it in exchange for it being able to have that large buffer zone on the north side. North side? West side, my apologies. Turned around.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
I would also note, if I might,
Go ahead.
I understand the Planning and Zoning Commission has a recommending body here and is recommending to the City Council. The City Council took the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission the last time, and with a substantially similar preliminary plat, approved it.
Thank you. Would anyone care to make a motion?
Vice Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Urquia?
I'll go ahead and make a motion that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept staff proposed findings of fact in forward case number 23015, Saddlebrook subdivision preliminary plat to City Council with a recommendation of approval subject to the outlined condition of naming, submitting the street names to the City of Raymore.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Urquia, seconded by Commissioner Smith to recommend that we accept the staff proposed findings of fact and forward case number 23015 Saddlebrook subdivision preliminary plat to the City Council with a recommendation of approval subject to the following condition of the street names being submitted to the City of Raymore. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Believe we have discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Discussion.
Discussion? Any discussion on the motion?
I would like to add, well, I'd like to amend the original motion to add the exception being noted by city engineering and city staff that the cul-de-sacs do exceed the provided code.
What's outlined in the code book?
Yeah. So just adding.
Does it exceed? Because I thought he said it when he read it that it could go it could go up to 800. So do they exceed 800? Because that was, if we're going to say it exceeds, we need to make sure that it
Yeah. Madam Chair?
acre lots.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think
Gotcha. Okay.
it's important just for me to read that section of the code book so we're all straight on it. So cul-de-sac streets may not be longer than 600 feet measured from center line of the cul-de-sac to center line of the connecting street. And that's what I've stated. All four cul-de-sacs violate that. Now, continuing on, in subdivisions with lots 1/2 acre or larger, cul-de-sac streets may be up to 800 feet in length. Well, that doesn't apply here. These are 4,500 square feet, not even close to 1/2 acre. But the operative sentence is the next one. Exceptions may be made where topographic or other unusual existing conditions so require, subject to the approval of the Director of Public Works and the Planning and Zoning Commission. So that's the exception that is.
And so that's what you were outlining for us, is that the west side, there's the tree line, the buffer, and that's why we're making the exception.
Correct. I think that was the determining factor in the existing topographic and natural conditions of the property, in addition to the presence of the gas main.
I'm not sure I understand Commissioner Manser's proposed amendment, other than as a notation to the recommendation that goes to the city council.
It would be a notation that the exception was approved.
Discussed.
So you're
Discuss
wanting
or
to
approve.
include the exception in the motion so that it's approved with the notation that we understood that there was an exception to the length and we were okay with that?
Correct, because that's not in our packet, right?
Okay, so it was simply put forward as a motion to approve the preliminary plat. And we have a second on that one. The proposed amendment, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Commissioner, would be to include within the motion that approval of the preliminary plat, including the noted exception to the length of the cul-de-sacs,
Correct.
and forward it to city council with the recommendation of approval.
Correct.
Okay, I need a second on that proposed amendment. Proposed amendment would die for lack of a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Discussion on the amendment.
I'm fine with it. I guess if we're going to discuss it, I'm okay with the amendment. I
Okay, then
think it
you'll
does
vote.
clarify.
Then you'll call for a vote on the proposed amendment, and then you will vote on the underlying motion as amended. Does that make sense? Everyone understand?
Only if the amendment passes.
I'm sorry, yes, correct, Commissioner.
Okay, wait.
Absolutely correct.
I'm a little confused. The first thing we're voting on is the amendment first and then the,
You are voting on the
Then the
amendment.
motion.
If the amendment does not pass, you will vote on the underlying motion as originally stated by Commissioner Urquia. If the amendment does pass, you will be voting upon the amended motion as provided by Commissioner Urquia and amended by Commissioner Manser. I'm seeing nods and affirmation up here. If anyone is questioning, please stop now, and I'm happy to walk through the process. Glad I showed up tonight.
okay. All right, so we're voting, the motion is an amendment that indicates that we have noted the exception to the length of the cul-de-sacs. That's all I say for this one?
You will be you would
You'll be-
potentially be approving the preliminary plat subject to the acknowledgement of the exception.
Okay.
Under, what was the section?
445-030 I-9A, I believe.
Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it. So that would be the proposed motion. Emily, do you understand? You have the motion? Commissioner Manser, is that accurate on your motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Smith, is that accurate on your understanding of the second?
It is.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor, I'm not going to repeat that whole thing again. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You do have a majority of the commission present, so that will approve the proposed amendment.
Okay,
Underlying motion as amended is open for vote.
okay, so now I'm, repeat the original one, or do we have to just vote on that? It's all, since it's already
The
been,
original as amended.
Yep, that's
Oh,
exactly correct.
did we, so there was a vote on the ayes. Was there a vote on the nays?
oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, good call. Thank
How do
you,
say
Commissioner.
that? All those not in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we have
Two.
opposed, I guess opposed would be the proper term. And 0 extension. Okay, all right. Now we'll move on to voting on the original motion with the amendment
That's correct. The original motion will be,
to
making
accept
sure
this-
I understand Commissioner Urquia's, and the addition will be to recommend approval of case number 23015, Saddlebrook preliminary plat, subject to the staff's recommendation for conditions, and as amended to reference the commission's acknowledgement and understanding of the approval being given pursuant to the code section exception. Fair enough?
Yes.
We all good?
I think so.
The floor is
Okay.
yours, Commissioner Chairman.
Thanks. Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand.
1, 2, 3,
Okay.
4, 5.
Opposed?
5 to 2.
No abstentions, okay. It will pass.
Motion
Or-
passes.
Okay, thank you.
Can we state our objections?
By all means, please do.
Commissioner Bowie?
Very little comment on that. Commissioner Faulkner raised a lot of the same concerns I had regarding at least half of the proposal. So tiny lots, I have a huge problem with that. So tremendous problem with that, as I see tiny lots all over the city. So with that, he stole a lot of the thunder, so that's going to be my statement.
Thank you. Commissioner Faulkner?
And I agree with everything Commissioner Bowie said, and I didn't hear anything different tonight to cause me to change my vote from 2021.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our next case.
And Madam Chair,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes?
I'm going to be recusing from case 23-018 since I'm an adjacent neighbor to Madison Valley.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to, let's see, case number 23018, Madison Valley Third Plat, Final Plat. Will the applicant please come forward? And state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening. My name is Brian Ron, 1000 Northwest High Point Drive, Lee Summit, Missouri. Thank you for looking at our project this evening. We've, started construction on the first plot that we were putting in there, and that's proceeding well. And consistent with the preliminary plat, we're moving into the next section there, and we're excited to keep that project moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Don't think so. Thank you. All right, move on to the staff report.
Thank you. So tonight you have in front of you a request for final plat approval for Madison Valley Third Plat. This is generally located east of the future extension for Sunset Lane and north of North Park Drive. Existing zoning for this is R1.5, and the total number of lots will be 21 for this as well, over a 5.98 acre tract of land. The growth management plan identifies this area as appropriate for low density residential, and the major street plan identifies or classifies the future extension of Sunset Lane as a minor collector. You've actually just seen Madison Valley Second at our last planning commission meeting, so everything in the history is about the same. The only thing is the city council has actually seen Madison Valley Second and passed it on the first reading, so second reading will be on the 12th. Really for this, originally for Madison Valley Second, there was a phasing schedule that was approved by the planning commission. This deviates a little bit from that phasing, but not any fault to the applicant, as we've still been working diligently to try and obtain right-of-way for Sunset Lane to be able to finish that extension. And so this was out of Fire's request that Heritage be connected so that they have the ability to get in there if there's an emergency. Staff does recommend this for approval to the Planning Commission and submits the proposed findings of fact in Ford Case 23018 Madison Valley Third Plat, Final Plat to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. This will conclude staff report.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for staff? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Mansur.
I would like to accept the staff proposed findings of fact in Ford Case number 23018 Madison Valley Third Plat, Final Plat to the City Council with a recommendation of approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Mansur, seconded by Commissioner Peterman. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, then we will go to a vote. The motion is to accept the staff proposed findings of fact and forward case number 23018, Madison Valley Third Plat, final plat to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, seems like we have unanimous, no opposed. Okay, so it will be forwarded on to City Council. Thank you. Oh, I guess we do have an you abstain one. Yes. We got it. Okay, thanks. Well, yeah. Right, gotcha. Okay. Okay, you guys are making things so hard for me tonight. Okay, let me get back to my. I know. Okay, let's see. I gotta find my agenda again here. Where to go? Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to find my. Okay. Right. Next, we will move on to the City Council report.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Chairman, Visor. My apologies. There's been one City Council meeting since the last meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The City Council meeting occurred on May 22nd. During the course of that meeting, there are two items that would be of interest for the Planning and Zoning Commission. First item is going to be the approval of Madison Valley's second final plat. That was done at a first reading, so we have a first reading completed. There will be a second reading on that next week. With regard to the proposed plat, this was a north of 58 Highway. It's a 55-lot subdivision located north of 58 Highway between Sunset and North Madison Street. Planning and Zoning Commission had the opportunity to look at this last month on the 22nd and approved it by a unanimous vote of 8-0 for those individuals that were present. Also approved that same evening was a Johnston Drive right-of-way final plat. And again, this was Planning and Zoning Commission approval on the 22nd of last month. This one was approved by a vote of 9-0, again unanimous from the Commission. And that was part of the 2020 GO bond issuance for the Johnston Drive right-of-way final plat. Both of those were approved unanimously by the City Council during the course of its May 22nd, 2022 meeting. Interesting. It looks like we may have an incorrect item on that for the agenda item for that. But in any event, those are the two items of issue or concern for the Planning and Zoning Commission from the May 22nd, 2023 City Council meeting. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. There were no commission member appointments or otherwise that would be of note for that particular meeting. Thank you. That would conclude City Council report.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine will be pretty short tonight, so our next regular scheduled meeting is June the 20th. We will have two items on the agenda, and it will actually be concerning the same project, but it's Grant Park Villas. So it's just to the east, from the terminus of the S-curve, just kind of north of our West Central building. And kind of south of the point, but essentially it'll be a site plan for 48 apartment units, as well as the final plat. So those will be the two items for you, and then I will hand it over to Mr. Grass for his report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Included in your packet for the month of May was the department report. Due to the lag in the holiday, we weren't able to get it in the packet, so I apologize for that. But I did want to highlight a couple things. It was a busy month for permits and inspections. As you can see, there were 9 single-family home permits. We're standing at 20 for this entire fiscal year so far. So 9 for last month was pretty substantial. In addition to 28 permits that were issued in the Oak Ridge Farms 4th subdivision. That development finished up the streets here a couple weeks ago, and so vertical construction is beginning within that development. Relative to code enforcement, many of you have seen the grass is obviously growing, so Mr. Vogel's been very busy with grass violations. So he tries to be as proactive with those as possible. So if you're in your neighborhood and see any issues, make sure you reach out to him because he can get those taken care of fairly quickly within his process. But you can tell that it's spring because the grass is growing and he's been busy with that. I also wanted to highlight, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but in May, we did officially welcome our new Economic Development Director, Jordan Lee. She joined us from the city of Belton the beginning of this month, and so we've been kind of taking her around to different events and just around the city and kind of introducing her to folks. So if you have any interest in meeting her, feel free to stop by City Hall during the day anytime. But we look forward to bringing her up to speed on all the projects and hopefully bringing forward some exciting projects to the commission here in the future. That would conclude my staff report. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Do you have any comments? No? Okay, then we will move on to commission member comments. I think we'll start at the end with Commissioner Bowie.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. All right.
Commissioner Manser.
Thank you to staff. Apologies for being difficult, dragging it on a little bit. I do think it is important to note exceptions whenever we're passing something on. So thank you for bearing with me.
Commissioner Peterman.
No comments tonight.
Commissioner Faulkner.
In addition to my usual thank you to staff, I want to thank Vice Chair Pfizer for filling in and chairing tonight's meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Commissioner Urquia.
I'd like to echo Commissioner Faulkner and thanking Chairman Pfizer for running the meeting tonight. Thank you to staff for everything you do, and I will be absent on the 20th, just as a note.
Okay. I would like to thank staff, and I'd like to thank Commissioner Faulkner for keeping me on the rules here because it's all new and it was kind of a strange evening, so I'll mention that to Chairman Wiggins. And the only other thing I wanted to mention was that this Saturday is Raymore's Summer Scene Art Festival at TB Hanna Park. I'm not sure of the exact time, but it should be in your Raymore review that you should have all gotten in the mail. So it's a great event. You should definitely go out and check it out. That's my plug for the evening. So if anyone would like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Faulkner.
I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
I beat you.
All right. Motion to adjourn by Commissioner Faulkner, seconded by Commissioner Bowie. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, meeting adjourned.
I saw you getting ready. I saw you get uptight when you did it. And you guys got on matching color shirts today, man. You and Faulkner. Yeah.
In sync. Except on the